Hi, everyone. Welcome to our event to defend Kshama Sawant and to have a vital discussion about how we build a fighting union movement. I'm very excited. We have an incredible group of people lined up to speak today. I still see people coming through the waiting room, coming into the Zoom room. We have Sara Nelson here, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants and a national progressive leader. We're also joined by a number of fighters in the union movement, the socialist movement around the country, including, of course, Socialist Seattle Council member Kshama Sawant. My name is Matt Smith. I'm a member of Socialist Alternative. I'm an activist with the Kshama Solidarity Campaign. I'm also a former Amazon worker, and we are meeting during a historic moment for the labor movement as 5,800 of our siblings down in Bessemer, Alabama, are going up against Amazon, one of the most powerful companies in the world, in an effort to build a union there. Before we get to our speakers, I want to go to a video highlighting the work that people are doing down in Bessemer, the Amazon workers, the organizers down there, the work that they're doing to win a union in Bessemer, Alabama. Do we have that video lined up? Can we go over to that?
There you go, bro. Boom. We support it. Yeah, buddy. We support it.
Birmingham, Alabama, Big E Gangsta Grills, and I support the union for Amazon workers. We need equal rights. We need them better wages, better insurance. They working their ass off down there, getting our packages out. They need to get paid. Vote yes.
Unionization of the workers at Amazon and Bessemer is one of the more important things that's happened in Alabama in a long time, because I believe that workers are better treated, better paid, and have better working conditions when they speak collectively and are members of unions.
I'm here to support the unions, that they need a cool workplace and to be able to go to somebody and voice their opinions without being punished. So if everything goes well for them, okay?
The union is the way to go.
I support the union.
No, I got your back 100%. Everybody that I know that drive trucks, we're 100% behind you. So, thank God for what you're doing and keep up the fight.
Really incredible work going on down there. I think we cannot overstate how historic of an effort this is down in Bessemer, Alabama. We're honored to have one of the leading activists from Bessemer, Jennifer Bates, who's an Amazon worker at the fulfillment center in Bessemer, was one of the first two workers to start this union drive. Jennifer is going to start us off with an on-the-ground update from that union drive down in Alabama. Do we have Jennifer?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Well, what's going on? My name is Jennifer Bates, as he has stated, and I am one of the organizers for the union here in Bessemer, Alabama. To give you an update on what's going on now, we have a few more days before it's time to start counting the ballots. And right now it's really tense and excited and nervous all at the same time. But what's happening is a lot of the unsure voters are now trying to get the votes in this past week. More people, because of the support around the country, because of the on-the-ground workers who have come to support us and the national solidarity. The workers at Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama now are able to learn more, and they are realizing that, hey, we are not alone. And so those who are unsure and now understand why it's so important, why it's so necessary to have a union, now are filling out those ballots and turning them in. And even some who voted no are trying to get theirs back. But we're so excited, and some of the working conditions at Amazon has not changed. One of the things that have changed is Amazon has been much nicer, and they're trying to assist us more in human resource. But what we do understand is without the union, all of that can't stay. We don't trust it. And if we don't get the union in, it's going to go back to where it was in the beginning. Some of the issues that we've had are power suppression, and that's what I call it, meaning that management are able to talk to us, say things to us, but when we begin to speak back or give them some of the issues that we're having because of some of the problems that's going on in the facility, it's just like we're not even being heard. And they want the numbers, they need you to be working, or you're going to get written up, or you're going to get fired. We have a lot of stairs in a four floor building that we don't understand why you have tons of elevators and you only have one for human use, but we're told as employees that we're not allowed to use them. People are getting fired. That's one of the things I don't like about the right to work. People can get fired without having an opportunity or someone to represent them to pull their case. And where Amazon won't pull the cameras, where managers have pulled people off the jobs, the union will tell them to pull the cameras and prove to us that this person did this. We've had people to get fired. The management pulled them off the computer, which will log them out and say they're not working. If the manager doesn't go in and fix their time, then it's your word against theirs, challenging, saying that you were missing for 3 hours. So what we're doing is fighting to have our power, because right now we feel like we don't have any. One of the things we want to look at is also the working conditions. We have boxes falling all off the conveyor belts, hitting people in the head. The conveyors going down. They're making us pick the containers up and stacking them on the floor and pushing them to the side. It's horrible the way that they continue to treat us, holding our breaks. And during the pandemic, one of the things that Bezos came out with was that he gave $10 million to the Black Lives Matter associations, whether he did it or not. That's what he advocated. But what we understand as the workers there, you just took away $2 in incentive pay from essential pay from us 1 week prior. And you have Black workers working for you. So to take a $2 essential pay from us, and then the next week you said that you gave it somewhere else, but you have 85% in Bessemer, Alabama that work for you, and you took that away. So to us, those Black lives didn't matter. And for us as workers at Bessemer, Alabama, to us, it seems like it's a publicity stunt for him to say that he's giving these donations. But now what's happening is the curtain has been pulled away, and now everybody is able to see, not just at this Amazon, but in other facilities and other workplaces, that all this is propaganda for the company to say that he's helping the community. But what I believe is, when you help your community, you start at home. Start with your workers and saying, let your workers disperse the money where they see fit. So when you're going to take care of someone, to say, I'm donating, donate to the ones that are in your facility. He took it away, and we worked hard during the pandemic. People were getting sick. Bezos gave us nothing. He didn't say thank you. We got candy, cookies, little snacks every now and then, but nothing to help the parents. People were out sick. Another thing that was going on is the union busting tactics. I want to talk about that. It surprised me that Bezos would spend so much money to stop his workers from getting representation from a union. When he paid his representation to come talk us out of our representation, to make us feel like we don't need representation. But yet and still, you think $15 an hour is enough for us to live, and it's not. It's a minimum wage, and he amplified that a few weeks ago on a big sign telling Congress to match Amazon's $15 minimum wage. So you're expressing that you're giving your employees the bottom of the barrel, which is $15 minimum wage, when the work is beyond a minimum wage job. And he has bathrooms. You can't go in the bathroom with the signs on the door. Let's do it without the union. Don't let them come between our relationship when we really don't have a relationship. We have people talking to us on a screen, a computer screen, and we can't comment it back to them. And that's a part of, I think, also of power suppression, because they speak to us through a computer, but we can't speak back. You have signs all the way from the bathroom stall to the locker room walls, you know, out in the parking lot. Let's do it without the union. Get your ballots in. Vote no. We have classroom training. You spent money for that, but you dare to give your employees a raise or pay them for the hard work that they're doing and the time that they spent during the pandemic. I don't think he cares about the safety. The high turnover rate is so large in that facility that some of the people I started with, I probably don't even see about one or two. People are being injured. People are limping out, walking out. They have braces on their legs, and they continue to hold brakes. They have even got a mailbox put out in front of the facility for people to bring their ballots in, and some of the people are afraid to put them in there. The yes voters feel like Amazon will probably try to steal their ballots. So Amazon is doing a whole lot right now, and we're just continuing to fight until we get the count done on next week.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's really inspiring to hear all the work that you're doing down there. And in Seattle, we are no strangers to taking on Amazon and big business. Amazon and Jeff Bezos have fought tooth and nail against all of our victories in Seattle, including the Amazon tax that we won last year. What we know, what we've learned through experience is the importance of solidarity in these fights, because whenever workers organize and actually fight for what we need, not just what big business is willing to give us, they will fight back. Big business will fight back against us. So we need as much solidarity as we can. So all the solidarity in the world down to you and the other Bessemer workers, Jennifer. And as someone in the chat said, to paraphrase Frederick Douglass, power gives up nothing without a demand and a fight. We're facing a fight right here in Seattle as well. I know many of you know about this. We are facing a right-wing recall campaign against our socialist city council member, Kshama Sawant. We have won victory after victory here in Seattle, fighting unapologetically for working people, making Seattle the first in the nation, first big city to pass a $15 minimum wage, pass the Amazon tax, a whole string of victories. And now they're trying to organize to get the most consistent fighter for working people out of City Hall, mobilizing billionaires, mobilizing CEOs, mobilizing the entire establishment of the right wing and big business to drive Kshama and our movement away in Seattle. We have to stand up against that. That's also the reason why we're here today. But I want to get to our panel of speakers. We have an incredible group, like I said. I want to go through and let them all give some opening remarks. First, want to go to Cora Bergantinos Crespo, the president of UAW Local 4100 at Columbia University. Do we have Cora?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks
Awesome.
so much, Matt. And thanks so much, Jennifer, for that really inspiring report. So yeah, like as Matt was saying, I'm a newly elected president of a newly formed local 4100 that represents postdoctoral researchers at Columbia University. And we work in a range of areas from seeking cures to cancer and other diseases like right now COVID-19, to engineer new technologies or deepen our understanding in environmental and social sciences. And I'm also a member of Socialist Alternative, and I'm speaking today at personal capacity. And as researchers at Columbia, we've been fighting for our union and our contract, which we won last summer, since 2015. And all through the process, I always had this quote from Kshama: the power that I have on city council depends on the power that we can build outside city council. And that has been true for us all step of the way. When we force the university to drop any legal challenges and recognize our union, when we won our first contract with very simple, basic things like real protections against harassment and discrimination or parental leave. And still today, once we have the contract and we have the local to make sure that it's enforced, and as we fight against new issues that arise. And having a union doesn't fundamentally change the contradictions with the bosses. It just gives you a tool, a very important tool, as an organized collective voice to really defend ground and fight back more effectively. And in this context, I cannot overstate enough the importance of having people elected like Kshama Sawant. Many elected officials will come to the picket line, call your president or CEO and put some pressure, and some will even advance some legislation that helps unions or help us workers, and that's extremely positive and important. But Kshama has something that it's more important and more unique, I would say, and something that is going to become critical in the months and years to come. We all know that there is an economic crisis looming, and the time will come in which we are going to be asked to accept cuts and difficulties in the sake of balanced budgets. Co-workers and family members will be laid off, social and public services will be cut, and families are going to be evicted for not paying rent. And as workers, we are going to ask to compromise and follow the rules, while at the same time, bosses and higher ups will continue filling up their banks. We are already seeing this. In Columbia University, for instance, all non-unionized workers are getting a salary freeze. And they justify this, like even the president of the university is getting a salary freeze, but he's getting 4.6 million per year, right? Anyone here probably would take a salary freeze for the rest of our lives if we make 4.6 million per year. And it's in this context that the importance of Kshama is really critical. Like time after time, she has opened and continues to open our minds to what is possible, not just what is acceptable. Rejecting this policy that asks us to compromise with bosses and politicians that are giving us with one hand and taking back with the other. A policy that over the decades have made the United States one of the most unequal countries of the world. Kshama and our organization fought and won $15 an hour minimum wage in the first big city in the country. And as Matt said, also fought relentlessly to win the tax Amazon and big business for years to ensure that our communities have the money to invest in the services that we all desperately need. And as workers, organized or not organized in unions, we need that spark. We need to be reminded that we do have power and that we can and should be challenging the status quo, this capitalist system. And when we base ourselves in a strategy, not of deals behind closed doors, but on organizing our fellow workers on the job, our neighbors and our communities, based on worker solidarity, we can rewrite what is possible, that we can create and build the kind of world that we all need. And that's why Kshama is under attack, for using very effectively this strategy of movement building, of not compromises without a fight, of overcome any obstacle that come on the way. And that's why Kshama, it's never going to be able to come to our picket line here in New York City, but still her influence is tremendously important for us here in New York, for the entire United States, to be honest. Defending her position, it's not just about Seattle, but it's sending a very clear message to the Jeff Bezos of the world and all these union-busting CEOs that an injury to one, an injury to a working class leader, it's an injury to all of us, and that we do have power and we are ready to use it. So I'm very glad to be here defending Kshama's seat. And yeah, thanks so much everyone for coming. I'm willing to engage in the discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Cora. And we have gotten an enormous amount of solidarity from UAW members in particular out in New York, in Seattle, for the Kshama Solidarity Campaign. Hundreds of union members have signed in solidarity with our union members petition. I saw someone posting it in the chat just a minute ago. I want to encourage everyone to go to that link and sign that petition in solidarity with Kshama. And we, of course, send solidarity out to the UAW workers out at Columbia University as well. I want to go to Keon Liberato, who is the president of Teamsters Local 3012, a member of DSA's National Political Committee. Keon, do we have you?
Yes, you have me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, everybody. Yes, I'm out of Philadelphia. So Local 3012 is of the Brotherhood of Maintenance and Way Employees, which is a in the rail conference of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and we represent the workers in the northeast quarter of the U.S. So basically from New York, just Queens, New York, down to Washington D.C. and out to Chicago, Missouri, on the railroad. So we do track maintenance and construction and all the catenary wires and all that kind of stuff. So and as said, I'm also a member of the DSA's National Political Committee, and it is an honor to be here with everybody, just to be part of the struggle at this moment. There's nothing better that I could be doing. And I just want to say there's three things that really stick out to me about this moment that we have to deal with. The first is that, we have got to organize the unorganized, and we have got to transform our unions from the rank and file on up to make them strong, class struggle, militant, and democratic unions. And together, we have got to do both of these in order to mount the most ferocious fight back and struggle for our lives and for our dignity out here in this country. In DSA, we had the Emergency Worker Organizing Committee. And through that project, we with the UE, we talked to hundreds and hundreds of workers throughout this pandemic, just providing them some organizing assistance as they organize themselves to fight back, just to provide basic safety in the middle of this pandemic. And I can tell you that all of those workers came away from this experience, or are still currently dealing with this experience, and realized that there really are two classes in the society. There's the bosses and then there's us, and that the bosses really don't care about them and will sacrifice them at the drop of a dime, right? And so to that point, it's very important that we do pay attention to the fact that there is a piece of legislation that's out there, and that is the PRO Act. Right now, legislation won't save us, right? The only thing that can do that is us. But what the PRO Act does is provide us some tools that make it easier for us to organize. It helps to curtail or constrain the power of the bosses so that they won't undermine the process, at least not as easily as they are doing these days. And it'll get rid of right to work. So it'll really level the playing field, so to speak, so that we can go on and do that first part that we talked about, which is organizing the unorganized. I think it points to the second thing, which is that we are dealing with, we're dealing with racism in this country. I mean, it just keeps happening. We see the police brutality. We see the racism in terms of who's getting COVID. I think I read some statistic that said something like 80% of people that are dying from COVID throughout the pandemic are people of color, right? So there's something going on racially with the structure of our society, with our economy and our institutions, and directly related to the weakness of organized labor is the fact that the working class does not have the tools currently to mount the kind of fight back that we need to actually win. So we saw hundreds of thousands of people in 2020 take to the streets just to protest some aspects of that racism. And I always think about it, I said, well, what if there were hundreds and thousands of trade unionists that were there that said there will be no peace unless we have justice, that say that they will stop the economy in its tracks in order to make sure that justice is done by all of us, right? So to that end, I think it's really important that we continue to build our trade unions by organizing more people, and again, organizing from the rank and file on up. The third thing that I think is really important is this, that we don't have, it should be clear to all of us, we don't have many politicians that are our people. We don't have our own political party that's out there to support us. And it's time for us as the working class movement in this country to not only organize ourselves in the economic field, but it's time for us to take it political, and we need to actually have our own political party. But what we have seen is some class struggle fighters for us, right? And Kshama Sawant is one of them. It's really inspiring to just watch Kshama and folks in Social Alternative and folks in the community throughout Seattle organize, election after election, to restore her and the movement back to the institutional halls of power in Seattle, and it's inspiring to see that no matter what is thrown at our movement out there in Seattle, that we prevail. So here we are again, though, and the capitalist class in this country is mounting a coup. That's what I see it as. I see it as a coup, and I think that every socialist, every worker, every trade unionist must organize and support Kshama Sawant. Not only supporting Kshama because she's been a great organizer while in city council, but also because she represents our movement and the type of political figures that we need to have, the kind of political leadership that we need to have. So with that, I won't hold up anybody else, but I am happy to be here in solidarity from Philadelphia. We got you back.
Thank you, Keon, and solidarity right back to you. Really exciting to see DSA members and Socialist Alternative members and labor movement leaders around the country coming together, standing in solidarity around these fighting demands, around fighting back against right-wing attacks on our movement. And Keon hit on some really important issues that we're going to be talking about throughout this meeting, from the PRO Act to different things, the need for a fighting labor movement, an independent labor movement. I saw a lot of love in the chat for the idea of building a workers' party to fight independently. So thank you, Keon, for bringing those things in. I want to go now to someone who we're very honored to have on the call again, Sara Nelson, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. I've already introduced her, but deserves a second introduction. Sara, do we have you?
I am here. Thank you, Matt. And first of all, I just want to say solidarity to my sister, Kshama, who is using this struggle, this moment of an attempted recall against her efforts to hold the elite class accountable, to talk about the struggle of workers everywhere and actually live what she believes. So holding up the idea that we can actually have power by having each other's backs, by organizing in our workplace, by starting in the workplace, and the politics will follow. And I just want to say, Kshama, we got your back. All of us here on this call got your back, because we know that you are building a fighting movement for working people. And that's what this is all about. And so behind me here is actually a picture that I got down in Bessemer of Jennifer Bates, who you just heard from at the top of the call. And I got to give Jennifer all the love in the world. She has been pouring her heart out. And I hear in what she says a lot of flavor of Mother Jones from over 100 years ago. Jennifer says, we're the billionaires. We just don't spend it. And that's true. We create all the value. We create all the value for Amazon, for all of our companies, and we're going to get our fair share. And that's what this is about. It's also about the fact that we are not going to allow them to say that they can just tell us what's good enough for us. The idea that Amazon would, in such an arrogant, disconnected, totally disinterested way, talk about their workers and try to say they've got it better off at $15 an hour, when that's not even competitive with the same kind of work right there in the Birmingham area. It's arrogant, and they don't care. And they're willing to just fire people if they stand up and speak up. So the fact that the union is organizing there, things have already been made a little bit better. When I was there, the warehouse shut down because it was unsafe weather conditions, and people were paid. If the union organizing drive wasn't going on, do you think that would be happening? At the same time as they shut down the warehouse, I was able to go right up to that mailbox that they put right in front of the front door. And Amazon has cameras trained on that mailbox. That mailbox is not supposed to be there. It's in violation of labor law, and it's in violation of the instruction from the NLRB. But they think with all the money and all the control in the world that they can just wait out any kind of ramifications for them after the fact, wait out the workers. What they don't understand is that there is a fire. There is a fire that started before the narrative even was starting to talk about supporting unions in this country. There's been a lot of talk, and I want to recognize the importance of that message from President Biden and the message from other politicians. But I want to recognize that the workers started this campaign in October, well before the election. The workers called for this election before the president was inaugurated. This has been about workers starting in the workplace, understanding our power. The corporate elite has all the control and all the money, but we have the power. And people all over the country, when we join together like this in solidarity efforts together and having each other's backs and start to understand that, as Jennifer Bates says, also, we are not robots who live to work, but we work to live. Just like 100 years ago, we said, we need bread, but we need roses too. And so we're claiming our power in this moment, and the workers in Bessemer are inspiring people all around the world. There were reporters from almost every country around the world down there reporting on this campaign. People are watching it everywhere because people are sick and tired of this. 85 million people in the United States alone want to have a union. We got to open our arms wide. We got to show them that when we have each other's backs, we can win. And even if this election does not get the union on the property right now, the workers there have made a commitment, have built power there, have changed the narrative, and we're going to win. And if this election turns out that we do get those votes to win, we're going to have another struggle to get that contract in place. And we're going to have to continue to hold Amazon accountable. I have good news for you. So we fought hard. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Thank you for bringing that up, Matt, from Frederick Douglass. That is 100% true. We have to remember that every single time, and we have to be smart about it. And so we were smart this year in making sure that any relief money would be focused on the workers in aviation. We were able to do that because we're 80% organized in the airline industry. We had that kind of power where we could hold capital accountable in this moment and actually build a relief plan that's focused on the workers and caps executive compensation and bans stock buybacks. But there was a gap in that support, in that relief from October to December. And so there were a bunch of flight attendants who went out and looked for other work. And they're in Amazon warehouses all over the country right now. And I'm hearing from them. They're waiting for their training dates to come back on the line, come back to work. And they're talking about the fact that the workers are talking about their union in the workplace. And they are organizers on those shop floors right now. I want to note what Jennifer said. You know, it's one thing for this company to say, we're for social justice. We're for Black lives. We're for women's rights. We're for $15 minimum wage. Let's be very clear. This is about lifting the floor so we can raise the roof. Minimum is not what we expect for a company that is making billions of dollars and arguably one of the most powerful companies in the world because of the workers' work. But for that company to also say that the elevator can only be used for product and the workers have to climb 4 flights of stairs before they even start their 10 or 12-hour shift with only 2 breaks and dings if you have to spend a little extra time going to the bathroom, that reminds me a lot of 100 years ago and the coal miners fighting the coal barons who treated mules as more important than men. We're fighting the same fights. The same fights 100 years later. Labor's struggle is never over. But because we struggle, because we fight, because we call them out, and because we claim our power together, we're going to win. They cannot overcome the power that we have when we stand together. So we're going to get to the questions, but I just want to tell you how happy I am to be here tonight. My solidarity with all of you. And to all of the workers in Bessemer, we are cheering you on, and we are getting ready to just explode the labor movement and take our power as working people and change this world together.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And as Sarah said, as I saw someone post in the chat, there are more of us than there are of them. We need fighters at the head of the union movement in office who understand that and take a strategy of mobilizing those millions of people to win the things that we need. So thank you, Sarah, for doing that. And this event has been organized by the Kshama Solidarity campaign. We also have with us the person that our campaign is in solidarity with. someone who has been a fighter for 6 years in the Seattle City Council, is the only socialist on the council, a fellow member of Socialist Alternative, and now I believe a fellow member of DSA with Keon, a rank and file member of AFT Local 1789. And like I said, Seattle Socialist City Councilor Kshama Sawant, do we have you with us?
Thank you, Brother Matt and Brother Keon, and thank you, Sisters Jennifer and Sarah. The courageous workers in Bessemer, Alabama are taking on some of the most powerful people in the world. They are fighting on behalf of themselves and millions of workers at Amazon and other corporations who are struggling under brutal working conditions. The brunt of the current crisis of capitalism is being thrust upon the working class, while the bosses and the CEOs make record profits off the pandemic. Amazon is going to war against the union effort, as Jennifer was talking about, spending $10,000 a day on anti-union consultants to spread their lies and intimidate organizers. The company's executives have brazenly broken labor laws. They and the ruling class as a whole are fighting tooth and nail against the union because they understand that this union-driven success could be a historic game changer for the fight for workplace rights across America. It would also be a powerful shot in the arm for workers fighting against racism and sexism. The harsh reality of income inequality in the country and the deep and structural oppressions has created a strong pro-union consciousness among working people in Alabama. Socialist Alternative members have been on the ground for several weeks to do everything we can to help through extensive canvassing and tabling in support of the union drive. We see both strong support for the Amazon union and for unity in general. Cooperation and solidarity, as Sarah was saying, is the only way working people can defeat both racism and bad working condition. The struggle for Black liberation, for the end to women's and LGBTQ oppression and bigotry and xenophobia is linked to the wider struggle of the working class for decent working and living conditions and for dignity as a whole. As many of you know, as a working class representative, I take home the average worker's wage and donate the rest after taxes of my six-figure salary into a solidarity fund. That solidarity fund donated $3,000 to fund the barbecue and canvas event in Bessemer that Socialist Alternative, union members, DSA, and community organized last Saturday alongside the warehouse workers and RWDSU. It will be a real fight to win the union in Bessemer in these final days. If the workers succeed, it will be our historic responsibility to stand with them as they begin the next big fight for their first contract and to help push forward union drives in other warehouses across the nation. We should be clear, it will be a serious struggle to win that first contract if the workers win the union. Amazon and the ruling class know what is at stake. A potential revival of the proud militant American labor movement, and along with it, a rejection of the business union ideas that have increasingly dominated some unions for the last 4 decades. That is why if the workers win, we need to fight to spread the organizing drive and explode it, as Sister Sarah said, to turn our unions into what they need to be, organs of rank and file class struggle. Last Friday, Socialist Alternative members from Brooklyn, New York, went to the Amazon warehouse in Staten Island and talked to hundreds of workers who are inspired by the Bessemer struggle, are eager to unionize, and are hungry for a strategy to win. The courageous Amazon workers have already begun to lift the sights of working people across America. The state of Alabama gave uber wealthy Amazon executives over $50 million in tax breaks. Instead, the workers in Bessemer are having to pay a tax of $5.45 per week. And if this shameless exploitation of the Bessemer workers was not enough, much of that tax revenue goes toward police with a 24 hours a day police detail outside the warehouse. Not surprisingly, many Amazon workers in Bessemer and elsewhere are inspired by our successful tax Amazon movement in Seattle. Our victory here has already helped initiate a tax Amazon movement in Burbank, California. The example of working class struggle is powerful and will spread, and we have to actively help it do that. The ruling class will fight us every step of the way. In order to be successful, we have to be clear who is on our side and who isn't. We cannot have illusions in the bosses or in their political servants. We cannot afford to naively believe we can have peace with pro-capitalist politicians in either party, or that we can convince Democratic Party politicians with reasonable arguments. It was no accident that after our movement won overwhelming support for the $15 minimum wage and made it impossible for the Democratic establishment to ignore us, Seattle Mayor Democrat Ed Murray convened a committee that was half full of business representatives to try and water it down to $11 or $12 with all kinds of loopholes. We won only because of our 15 Now movement. It was no accident that last year, after our Tax Amazon movement built unstoppable momentum, progressive Democrats signed on to a business-backed plan called the Third Door Coalition. And then after they were forced to concede the Amazon tax victory, they thanked business representatives and not the Tax Amazon movement. We cannot afford to underestimate the dedication with which these quote unquote progressive Democrats will serve the interests of the ruling class. And by the way, what does it mean to call a politician progressive who fights tooth and nail against virtually everything working people need? The Democratic Party, which controls this city, has been forced to adapt itself away from overtly corporate politics and campaigns openly funded by big business. The new crop of Democrats don't take corporate money and use progressive rhetoric in their speeches. This is a positive development because it represents how socialists and working people's movements have transformed our city's politics. But what remains fundamentally unchanged is the class interests that these politicians represent. They were forced to approve the Amazon tax, which the Tax Amazon movement won in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter protests. They were forced to promise defunding the police by 50%. They were forced to vote yes on our ban on police use of weapons like tear gas and rubber bullets against peaceful protests. But shortly after the street protests subsided, they reneged on their 50% defund promise. This year, they gutted the weapons ban, and state Democrats have started talking about undoing or phasing out our Amazon tax. We urgently need many more socialists and working class representatives in office, but it is not simply about numbers. It is much more about electing representatives who are clear-eyed about basing themselves on movements and a fighting strategy. Events have proven how it will not be enough to tweet support for an issue like 15 or criticize Republicans or symbolically introduce progressive legislation like Medicare for all. This is not going to get it done. In Congress, it's not just about introducing a bill. We will need a serious strategy to actually win it based on mobilizing millions of working people and union members and being prepared to go up against the Democratic Party leadership. We have to clarify, for example, the reason the squad accepted removing the federal $15 minimum wage from the stimulus bill is not because they're carrying out some 3D chess strategy, but because they are reluctant to clash with Biden and Pelosi. Many progressive politicians want working people to believe that change can happen in some harmonious way. This is simply not possible, and it is a pathway to capitulation. The great Irish socialist James Connolly once said, "The role of a socialist in elected office is to be a disturber of the political peace." This is not because as socialists we personally love conflict. It is because the whole machinery of capitalism is designed to crush workers, and there is no way to stand against that while being part of the club. This is also why we urgently need a new party for working people and the oppressed. Rather than the futile task of trying to organize pro-capitalist Democrats, as some are suggesting, we must instead organize a grassroots force alongside other socialists and working class representatives to lay the groundwork for future class struggle. Bessemer workers are also hearing about why can't we all get along, and how Amazon is one big family, as Jennifer was reporting. Workers are told the union is disrupting the peace and they really just want your dues money. We have to fight unambiguously against these reactionary, dishonest ideas everywhere we find them. And we need to go further. We not only need unions at every Amazon workplace, we need to take these workplaces into democratic public ownership by workers. In our fights for workers' rights, we need to always have at the forefront that this system was not made for us, that we need an alternative, to this brutal, racist, sexist system of capitalism. A system that right now, in the richest country in the world, has Amazon workers under surveillance and forced to urinate into bottles. We need a fundamentally different kind of society. We need to fight for a society based on solidarity, equality, and sustainability. We need to fight for a socialist world. Solidarity.
Solidarity, Kshama. And I think everyone can see the clarity of purpose and the clarity of strategy that Kshama has, the importance of keeping a fighter like her in office. I want to mention again the petition that has been put in the chat from union members. If you're a non-union member, please feel free to sign it as well in solidarity with Kshama. And, you know, solidarity is a two-way street. And so we've also put, I believe people have posted in the chat, a link to a petition in solidarity with the workers down in Bessemer, Alabama, that's been put together by Cora and other socialist union leaders around the country. We've had a huge, we have, I think now over 500 people who are viewing this between Zoom and YouTube and Facebook. We've had a huge show of support coming to this meeting. We've also had a lot of questions for the people who have come. I want to, you know, that have been submitted through the Zoom registration. I want to get to some of those. I know Sarah has to leave us at the top of the hour. So I want to start off with a couple of questions to you, Sarah. First of all, I think, you know, something that's a really important lesson, and one of the things that a lot of people know you from is the government shutdown, the Trump-led government shutdown, and what AFA did to end it. I think that was very inspiring for a lot of people. So can you say something about what we can learn from that event?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I want to recognize that Keon was talking about the demands that we have around the PRO Act and restoring the right to strike, restoring the right to secondary boycotts. So the right to strike is incredibly important. And I want to recognize first and foremost that the strike is a tactic. Solidarity is our power. So during the government shutdown, what we recognized was that this really sort of harkened back to, or there was a lot of similarities and a lot of recognition that this was very much like the PATCO strike. Now, the government shutdown was not created by the union. It was created by Trump over the border wall, which was his diversionary tactic. What we started to recognize was that there was no political answer to ending this government shutdown. It was 35 days long, twice as long as any government shutdown in the history of the US. And what we started to recognize was that this was really all about pushing us to a place where government wouldn't work. After the PATCO strike, workers were fired and indicted. They could never work as air traffic controllers again. And, you know, PATCO was a strong mobilized union, but the rest of the labor movement did not recognize that that was a moment for us to stand with the air traffic controllers in that strike. Because what happened then was a constant attack on our right to strike, on our power to stand up. We went more and more towards business unionism. There was a focus on labor management cooperation, and our union density declined during that time. And so we recognized that in this moment when there were 2 million people out of work, so almost 1 million federal workers, another 1 million contractors who were working in federal facilities who were suddenly out of work, and approximately 400,000 people who were forced to come to work without pay. And this was something that the public could see. They could see it at the airports. This was happening in federal parks. It was happening in the Social Security office. It was happening in all these places that are really outside of the public view. But the airports are a place where people can see it. They could see that the TSA officers were coming there to work and continuing to conduct security so that people could continue to fly, could continue on their lives. And there was a lot of solidarity in that around the fact that people were making good on their oath of office while the politicians were absolutely abandoning it. But what we really recognized was that what Trump was trying to do was to make government not work, to make the narrative around a government being just a bunch of bureaucrats and not our friends and neighbors, not the people who are actually doing the work that make our country move. This was all about tearing down government so that they could privatize more. If the federal workers had gone off the job, they could have been fired or indicted. There was a lot that was at stake there. But what was also at stake was the fact that Trump could have said, okay, this isn't working. We have to have these systems work. And so I'm going to privatize everything right now. We're just going to move very quickly. So we recognized that there was no political solution here. We were going to have to take this into our hands. And we were going to have to recognize that this is a moment that was an absolute humanitarian crisis for people who could not afford a tank of gas to get back and forth to work. So they're sleeping at the airport so they could continue to do their jobs. So we stood up and we said, this is the moment when the labor movement needs to be talking about a general strike. But we also said that flight attendants were getting prepared to strike because we were not going to work in unsafe conditions. And so we defined the problem, we defined our demands, we added the urgency to the situation, and we said what we were willing to do. And on January 24th, the Congress did not pass a resolution to put in place a budget to reopen the government. And the very next morning, a few flights started to cancel, and we had already set out this narrative that this was about a moment where labor was going to take charge, labor was going to take over because politics were not working. And as those few flights started to stop, because we had been so clear about that, the GOP was terrified that we as workers were going to get a full taste of our power. And not even 24 hours later did Congress vote for the exact same package that they had voted down the day before. And so this was really about making our demands clear, making clear about the urgency of the situation, what we were willing to do about it, and we took control of that scenario, and it ended as soon as it was very clear that this was out of the scenario of a political assessment and into the scenario of workers taking control of our world.
Thank you, Sarah. And if you can stay with us for one more question, we had a really great question from Marty. If we can get Marty on to ask that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Marty Harrison. I'm a nurse in Philadelphia. I'm a member of PASNAP, so I'm really looking forward to having you at our statewide convention next month. And I just wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit more about how the PRO Act would be part of that exploding the labor movement, and critically, what sort of things we would have to do in order to get it passed. Thanks.
Okay. There we go. I think we finally got it. Okay. Thank you so much for the question. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible, but let's be really clear. The PRO Act is actually in my view, a much better demand for changing labor rights than the Employee Free Choice Act was 10 years ago in 2010 and 2011 with Obama, because this is really about creating a fighting labor movement. What it does is first of all, everything that's happening in Bessemer, all of these issues with Amazon, they would be held account right now. There would be immediate injunctions to stop them from the anti-union actions that they're taking. There would be immediate consequences. There are consequences even for supervisors under the PRO Act. Of course, it would rid any state's ability to put in place right to work laws, which are obviously about weakening the unions and weakening the workers' voices. It would also restore the ability for workers to conduct secondary strikes and boycotts that will help us get at the issue of the contracting or the redefinition of jobs. Or even the gig economy. We would be able to strike in support of other workers, which will allow us to get at holding accountable the people who are really making the decision. It would end misclassification of contractors and make them employees so that the bosses have to respond to them. And Also, it would require that there is an arbitration and mediation for first contracts, because a lot of times what workers do is they fight through everything in order to get their union. And then half the time those first contracts are not reached, and there's attrition at the work site, and the union sort of like unravels simply because they can't ever get to those contracts and those wins. And the corporations tend to try to wait people out, so they become tired and demoralized, and the delay tactics really help to try to move the union on off the property. And so all of those things are very clear demands about how to put more power back in the hands of workers, hold the corporate elite accountable for their actions right when they're happening. Because right now, corporations can make an assessment. We're willing to take on the fines that we might get later for violating these laws. We're even willing to take on the chance that there may be another union election ordered. But in the meantime, we continue to be able to fire people, to be able to control the list, to be able to shape what this election will look like, and the delay tactics and the demoralization and making it look like there's no power with the union. We hope we'll continue to get workers to step back or be intimidated or be able to retaliate against them and say, we're going to move the job somewhere else. So these demands in the PRO Act are actually being, a light is being shined on why this is necessary with the organizing in Alabama. I will say that the coverage around this campaign has increased our ability to get the PRO Act passed, because more and more people understand that this is about actually individual rights. It's connected directly to voting rights. It's every attack of the corporate elite to try to silence individual people and pushing back on that. So people are understanding better what the PRO Act is and what our demands are. And that is critically important in order to move the politics on it. So I think that sitting here right now today, we don't have the votes or the process to get the PRO Act passed. But what we have seen, even over the course of this 7 weeks of voting in Alabama, is that the desire to get this done, and more politicians talking about it being important, and moving people in politics, and moving forward on actually more and more people talking about getting rid of the filibuster so that we can have a majority rules process in our government, is actually making the ground much more fertile for getting this in place. But in the meantime, while we have these demands and we're fighting for it, people are starting to understand that they can raise expectations about what they can expect at work and how they can expect to be treated. So I think that even as we are organizing for the PRO Act, even if we don't get all the way there, we are going to help organize in greater numbers. And of course, it is a chicken and an egg. If we had more union members, we would have the power politically to get this passed. But I cannot thank the Amazon warehouse workers enough for what they have done, because I believe in a very, very short period of time, we have already moved mountains on moving this politically to a place where this is actually possible to get done.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I know you mentioned the importance of this PRO Act for rideshare drivers and gig workers. I know we have a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers in Seattle. Rideshare drivers have been organizing with the help of Kshama for a very long time. That should be historic for those workers. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. Solidarity, everybody. I'm going to have some solidarity with my son right now, who has to do some homework and he needs his mom to do it. So I listen, I love you all. Thank you, Kshama, with you all the way. We've got your back. See you guys.
Thank you, Sarah, and solidarity. Thank you to all of the panelists for starting us off with those contributions. We're going to get back to some more questions that people ask to Kshama and Cora and Keon. We have, I mentioned, over 500 people who are viewing this right now between Zoom and Facebook and YouTube. And I want to take a few minutes to make an appeal to everyone here to help defend Kshama and our movement in Seattle against this attack by the right wing and big business. We've talked a lot already today about the importance of solidarity in these fights. The labor movement is built on solidarity, and we need your solidarity right now to keep a socialist fighter in office. I'm going to start listing off some numbers. You may have a number in your head that you're already planning on donating. We're going to be asking for financial contributions here to the Solidarity campaign. So if you already have a number in mind about what you might be able to donate, I'd ask you to think about what kind of sacrifice you can make and dig just a little deeper. If you hear a number that you can donate, write your name in the chat to give us some hype, and then click on the link that people are going to be posting in that chat to donate, and make your donation right now. It's important that you make your donations now, so that at the end, we will be able to count all of them up and celebrate what we've accomplished here with a huge show of support from union members, labor movement activists, workers around the country. So we have a goal of raising $15,000 today from everyone tuning in right now. And if we're going to hit that goal, we need everyone here to make a real sacrifice to defend our movement. The maximum donation for this campaign is $1,000 for an individual or $2,000 jointly for a married couple. Really consider today if you can afford to give that maximum amount. We're not billionaires. That's a lot of money for any of us. But if we want a movement that's accountable to us, then it's us who are going to have to fund it. If you can give that whole $1,000 today, or again, $2,000 jointly for a married couple, that is huge. If you're thinking, I want to donate that much, I can't afford it right now, we want you to break up that donation up over time and give a monthly contribution to the campaign. So like I said, I'm going to run through some numbers. Some people will be posting that donation link in the chat. When you hear a number that you can give, post your pledge in the chat to give us all some hype. Go to that donation link. And if you can space out your donations over the course of the campaign, just click the monthly option on the website to set up that recurring donation. And if any point you need to cancel it, just contact the campaign, let us know. But let's get some good solidarity. Let's get started. We've heard from Jennifer and others about the historic fight down in Bessemer, Alabama to unionize Amazon. This would be the first union of Amazon workers in the country. If workers win this fight in Bessemer, it would be an incredible victory. But it will be just the beginning. We've seen in Seattle what big business is willing to do to undermine the gains for workers. We will need a national movement to defend this potential victory in Bessemer and to build a fighting national union of Amazon workers. Kshama and the movement in Seattle are no strangers to taking on Amazon and winning. We not only defeated Amazon's $1.5 million attempt to buy City Hall in 2019, we followed it up with the historic Amazon tax victory, overcoming a 2-year campaign by Amazon and the Chamber of Commerce to crush our movement. The movement to unionize Amazon workers and campaigns like Tax Amazon are two sides of the same coin. They're part of the same battle, and working people are fighting back as the billionaire class has profited massively from the pandemic. We need fighting representatives like Kshama who are battle tested, who will stand unapologetically with the labor movement and working class movements. So who here can give that maximum donation of $1,000 to make sure that we can keep Kshama in office to help us build a movement that can defeat Amazon and big business across the country? Thomas, I already see a $1,000 donation, incredible. Who can join Thomas? Or who can commit to a $200 a month donation that can add up to $1,000 over time? I see a couple of extra donations in the chat. I'm going to be going down the list, so if you haven't heard the number yet, if $1,000 isn't your number, we're going to keep going. So hold on to those donations and post them when I give the number that sounds like something that you can do. I'll give it just another second. But let's go ahead and move on. The forces that are trying to recall Kshama in Seattle are the same people who want to see the union movement defeated nationally. It's people like Jeannie Nordstrom, who's a member of the anti-union and billionaire Nordstrom family, who drove unions out of their Seattle store in the 1990s, have fought attempts to unionize Nordstrom for decades. If it's capitalists outside of Seattle as well, like Eric Mendelson, who owns a nursing home real estate company in Tennessee, a part of the for-profit nursing home system that is responsible for thousands of COVID deaths. They have a national network of billionaires and CEOs on their side. We have a national movement of union members and working people. So who can give $500 right now to demonstrate that working people can go toe-to-toe with the billionaires and win? Mike with a $500 donation. Dana, Fantastic. Who can join Mike and Dana? Or who can start a monthly donation of $100 a month? All right, thank you for all that solidarity in the chat. Lots of fists and thumbs up to everyone who's donating. Let's go on. So the wealthy donors on the other side, these people that I just mentioned, they have collected now over $290,000 to remove Kshama from office. That's how determined they are when we have a working class fighter in office. Anytime that we have a working class fighter in office, they will fight to remove them. So how are they spending that money? They're spending it on putting up a Recall Sawant billboard in Seattle, just blocks from Kshama's house. They're also spending it on mass mailers like this one, which has gone out to thousands of voters in Seattle using their favorite racist photo of Kshama, using the trope of the angry brown woman, giving a dog whistle to their most reactionary supporters. They also have a network of establishment right-wing media, which has attacked Kshama and our movement over and over for 6 years. So who can give $200 to make sure that we have the resources to cut through that establishment propaganda machine, make sure that working people get the truth about this right-wing attack? Who can give $200? Zachary, thank you. Anna, $250. Fiona, Tyler, Alicia, and Travis. Incredible solidarity. Who can join them? Tyler, incredible. Another from Margaret. And also anyone who can give a recurring donation of $50 a month. Ernest, incredible. All right, let's move on. We have a couple more asks, then we'll get back to these questions. We have won huge victories in Seattle with the help and leadership of Kshama's council office. We were the first major city in the country to pass the $15 minimum wage. We passed the first in the nation ban on winter evictions and the first in the nation ban on police use of chemical weapons against protesters at the height of the George Floyd protest last year. And we passed our historic Amazon tax on Amazon and big business to fund affordable housing. Those victories have echoes across the country and give working people the confidence that we need to know that when we fight, we can win. And we have so much more to fight for. Rent control, a Green New Deal union jobs program, a national $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all. So who can donate $100 to make sure that we can go on the offensive and that we have a socialist fighter in office to stand with our movement in those fights? Douglas, Tara, Jen, I see, Amzai, Sheila, Sam, the hundreds are flowing in, Carrot, Tamar, Kaylin, and also anyone who can do a $20 monthly donation or a monthly donation of any amount that can add up to that $100 over time. Ori and Ella, I see those hundreds coming in. This is incredible. Allie, a $20 a month from Lorenzo, Rosemary, Lance. This is great. This is solidarity. This is what we need to win. Thousands of people chipping in. Richie, Kim, I see all these flowing through in the chat. This is fantastic. This is enormously inspiring for everyone. I see those 20s and 25s coming in, so I'm going to jump right into this final ask. The support has been incredible. I've made a lot of big asks, but this campaign, every campaign that we wage is going to be won with the support of thousands of working people contributing whatever they can. Our solidarity campaign has received 6,000 individual donations from working people in all 50 states and DC. The recall campaign uses that as an attack, saying we're funded by outside special interests. But we know that electricians in Boston, teachers in LA, baristas in Chicago are not a special interest. They're working class people who recognize that an injury to one is an injury to all. That's the foundation of the labor movement. So who here can donate $50, $15, $5 a month, any amount to add your name to that list of thousands of donors who are helping to defend this, to defend Kshama against this right-wing attack in Seattle? I see them coming through already. Wilson, Amanda, Kira is in for 50. Fantastic. Aska, Susanna, Eva, and I know many of you have donated already. Mark, Kelly, Nick, they're still coming through. Keep those going and be sure, go into the chat, and go to that donate link right now so that at the end of this, we can announce a huge show of support from this meeting to defend Kshama against this attack. Go to that link, but in the meantime, we're going to go back to our agenda, go back to these really important questions, these vital questions that are facing the labor movement. And we're going to go back to some of these questions that were submitted through our Zoom registration. So I want to go back to this Amazon union, this union drive in Bessemer, Alabama. We have a question from James. James G, is he available?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's James. I was involved in a successful union drive at my former workplace a couple years ago, and I learned a lot about solidarity, and that's why I'm down here in Birmingham and Bessemer, Alabama right now, helping build support for the union drive that's going on. And I think it could be a real turning point for the US labor movement, like everyone here has been talking about. And I think workers in Amazon warehouses and the logistics industry as a whole can really be inspired to get organized, and workers across the board could really start to move into action here. So my question is, how can we help this happen as quickly and as strongly as possible and make sure that what's happening in Bessemer, Alabama spreads everywhere around the country, that we start to organize the unorganized? And what are our unions going to be doing right now to help get that process started?
I think this is a question, if we can have all of our panelists weigh in, I think this is just a really important event, and like I've said, a historic moment for the labor movement. So maybe let's go ahead and start with Keon. Do you want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, first and foremost, yeah, I agree that this is a pretty significant moment, and I think, I think it was said earlier that one of the things that we need to do, like in terms of supporting, in terms of moving the ball a little bit farther, is first and foremost supporting what's going on in Bessemer as vigorously as we can, because the one thing that I think that happens is workers learn from each other. So when we see workers standing up, and sometimes it takes a while, right? But when we see workers standing up and on a continuous basis, we keep seeing these waves of workers organizing and striking and protesting, it starts to stir something else in other workers. And then they start saying, well, maybe we should be doing these things too. Maybe we have something in common with what's going on. And so that it creates a whole general environment, I think. So that's the first thing I would say that we need to do. In terms of our unions, I think, I think that, like, for example, in my union, there are a lot of folks who are saying, well, maybe we need to start looking at what's going on in terms of how Amazon is spreading all over the country, right? There are Teamsters all over the country, and, Amazon is everywhere. And so the question is, well, should we be thinking about organizing them, right? So I think that's going to be a conversation that you'll start seeing unions like the Teamsters. You'll start seeing more unions, probably like UFCW, who knows, that start to think about bringing, organizing all the workers in different points of, I guess, the supply chain, as connected with not only Amazon, but there are other places. Like once you start unionizing in Amazon, then it's other supermarket chains like Target, and then maybe it's Walmart at some point, right? Like we actually build a campaign to deal with Walmart. So I do think that everyone's paying attention to what's happening down in Alabama, and how we show up for that right now, and how we agitate within our unions, if you're in a union or if you're around other union people, agitating around unions to take up that charge will be really, really important, because I just think that that's the next step is for all of us to get in this, basically get into to organizing in Amazon. It's not the prettiest answer, but I mean, it's just more work.
Thank you, Keon. Cora, I want to go to you. New York has been another kind of hotbed of Amazon organizing, and from your experience with UAW as well. Do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I think that this is really a critical moment. And I think that it's not only, like important for having a union and in Amazon, but I think that it's very important because Amazon is a tremendous corporation, like international. And I think like we cannot let that model of worker exploitation to really spread. And I think like, yeah, it's extremely inspiring with Jennifer Tolas and of course what they are doing there. And I think like, like one of the things obviously right now during the campaign, and I think that Jennifer spoke a little bit to this, like Amazon is spreading the same lies that employers are spreading constantly about, the only certain thing are dues, like we have here over and over. And I think that as unionized workforce, we have a really important role in really showing that that's BS basically. And I think like clearly, like in the summer and across the country, that's taking place, and there is tremendous amount of solidarity. And I think that we should continue that. But also like once the unionization it's won, there is the contract battle. And I think like there we are going to need to continue supporting these workers to really win. And again, keeping in mind that this is not just a question of their workplace, but it's something that can affect us all in terms of fighting one of the biggest corporations that it's, like really parasiting not only their workers, but our communities, as of course you all know in Seattle very well. But then in terms of the unorganized, I think that that's also a very important point. Like in United States, it's like a little bit over 10% of workers that are unionized, and clearly we need much more than that. And I think like as unions, we need to start thinking, creatively, how can we reach all those workers that are not organized in unions right now? And I think like we should try to think on how we can use our unions to really advance broader questions for workers unorganized also, and how we can build campaigns in which we are advancing the bigger needs of the working class. Of course, Kshama, as we are talking here, it's a clear example, having elected officials that can really advance working class interests. But I think that can we also think on fighting for things that anti-austerity, things that are coming down the line. And I think like can we create campaigns in which we can link unionized workers with unorganized workers to improve our communities? And I think like something that Sara mentioned earlier, like the beautiful thing of organizing is like it's not a linear process, it's really explosive. And I think like if we can really show that unions, are here to defend workers as a whole, that are here to advance, to fight for the kind of things that we all need as working class, I think that it could be an explosive situation of really, people getting organized. And I think like that, yeah, as organized workers and as people that have a collective voice and a collective power, we have a very important role to think creatively on how we can do those things.
Thank you, Cora. I want to go now to Kshama. I want to hear your thoughts generally on this question, but I know you, Kshama, have been involved in supporting new workers who have been organizing out here in Seattle, and as a former Amazon worker, supporting Amazon workers who have fought back against the company, putting demands around climate change and all sorts of different things. So in addition to just general thoughts, what Cora raised about the role of elected officials in these kinds of fights. Go ahead, Kshama.
Yes, I think that's really important. Also, what elected representatives should do and what we should demand that they do. But just to start with the point that Cora made, which is absolutely crucial, which is that this is a key moment. It's a historic moment, and what we on the left, union movement and non-unionized workers who are on this call, who clearly are here because you want to get organized, you want to fight back, DSA members, all of us. I have to recognize that we have a crucial moment that we cannot squander. We cannot lose momentum. This is exactly what Cora was saying. And that's why, first of all, those of us who are union members, if we haven't already done this, I think it's crucial that we start discussions in our union about the Bessemer struggle, contact the Bessemer workers like Jennifer, have them speak at your membership meetings, have a discussion at your membership meeting about what this means for yourselves, for your union. And also, as others were saying, we should counter the anti-union lies of Amazon. And I really agree with Cora that a really good force to counter these lies are union members ourselves. I mean, we have a union. We know what it means to have a union. I mean, a story that I've shared before with some of you may be familiar with is, I like many other new PhDs who don't get a tenure track position, I was teaching courses at Seattle University and at Seattle Central Community College, and it was the same kind of work. And even though Seattle University is a private college with a big foundation and community colleges are struggling for funds, I still was paid significantly better in the community college simply because I had a union. So I think union members are in a strong position to speak against these lies, and we have to really raise it to a crescendo. Amazon and the billionaires, they have a big platform to speak from because the corporate media is on their side. Most of the politicians and the parties themselves are on their side. Who's on our side? It's union members. And we have to link up with non-union workers and recognize that the only way we can protect what we have gained as union members and then grow it is to unionize and fight for other workers as well. Well, we cannot have parochial interests. And so I think part of the pushback against the prevailing sort of business union type of logic that we've had in some of the unions for decades is also to push back against this parochial idea that, well, I've got my union, I've got what I want. No, you're going to lose what you have if you don't fight to grow the union movement nationally. And I think furthermore, if they win, if the Bessemer workers win, which we absolutely should help tooth and nail to help it win, and if they win, as I said before, there will be a huge fight for the contract, because Amazon is not just going to lay over and lay down and say, okay, you won the union, okay, here you go, there's a great contract. No, they're going to fight the union every step of the way. The campaign of lies is not going to stop now. It will continue during the contract struggle. Those of us who have been in unions for years, we know that every contract is a battle. So the best way to support is, first of all, is to be on the ground in Bessemer. If you can, Socialist Alternative members have been, as I said before, but if you're near an Amazon warehouse, you should go and visit the workers, talk to them, and help build the union struggles in other warehouses. And we should do as much as possible as we can in that way. But I think it goes beyond that. We also have to explore opportunities to see if we can build a tax Amazon movement in our cities. As I said, already in Burbank, California, we have socialists from Socialist Alternative and the Democratic Socialists of America really fighting to build this. We should help them build momentum. We have a council member there in Burbank, Constantine Anthony, who's also taken this up. We need to help support them and make sure that they know we are on our side, and that the people who are against them, which is Amazon and other big businesses and other politicians, also hear our voices, that they know that the Burbank workers are not by themselves, that we are on their side. And this also, I think, links up, just the last point, is just the overall sort of renewal of democracy within our unions. I think we have to, all of us union members, whether we are in leadership position or not, I think we have an obligation to fight for democratic unions. I think Sara was also mentioning this, and really have a rank and file democracy, because that is the only way we can use unions to do what they're supposed to do, which is really go all out and build a collective fight back for workers. So please start with at least with quick solidarity statements from your unions. Publicize the hell out of those statements. Don't just send it to the workers. Make sure the media knows about it, so that everybody, the powers that be, hear that the workers are not alone, and let's prepare to build organizing drives in Amazon workplaces. And I would really invite everybody who's here, if you're interested in hearing from Socialist Alternative, building with us, building a united fight back for unions with us, we really welcome that discussion. Let's make that happen.
Great. Thank you, Kshama. I want to go back to Keon for just a second. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate something that Kshama said that's really, really, really important. And that is this contract battle, right? So, hopefully, we're successful. We win the union in Bessemer. The contract battle, not only will it be significantly hard for the folks down there, it will be very instructive for much of the labor movement, right? Because the reality is we've gotten out of the practice of actually fighting as unions. So our fighting muscles are really, really weak in many of our unions. And so as rank and file folks are seeing learning about the conditions of other workers and seeing how they're organizing and putting together contract action teams, how they're building community support, how they're pulling on local community institutions and activist groups and all of that, that will start to kind of get the wheels turning in other unions like mine, for example. Folks will start to be like, okay, well, we could fight for those things there too, right? We could support in this way as well, right? So it becomes, there's a big issue that faces the labor movement today is that much of the rank and file and the leadership of our unions have forgotten that the union is first and foremost the workers' primary political instrument, and that's what we've got to get back to. So these fights are instructive for those of us who are not directly involved in these battles. And so we can get more of our people in supporting mode of some sort and use this to also educate our members. That will position our whole entire movement to be a lot stronger. So,
thank you, Keon. Really important points there. We have a question for Kshama. I think this is obviously all very connected to what's going on in Seattle as well. We have a question from Eric for Kshama.
Hi, my name is Eric from Philly. And a question I want to ask is, who is funding the recall campaign against you and why are they trying to remove you?
Yes, I think, Matt mentioned some of the billionaires who are behind this campaign, but just to start from the very beginning, the recall campaign has 4 charges against me, against my office. All of them claim that I broke the law in some way or another. One of the charges, for example, say that I broke the law by letting in Black Lives Matter activists into City Hall. We did have Black Lives Matter in City Hall, but that was not breaking the law. Another claims that I used public resources for a ballot initiative. All the charges are false. I did not break the law, but that does not matter as far as the Washington state law on recalling elected officials is concerned, which is set up to be deeply undemocratic. The recall law, for example, does not require the charges made in a recall petition that they be true. It only requires the charges to be stated properly, regardless of whether they're truthful or not. And even though the state Supreme Court will decide whether this recall can go on the ballot, the recall law does not allow us to defend ourselves in court. So in other words, the recall law is well suited for retaliation against working people's representatives who dare to stand up to the establishment and who dare to build movements. And it allows wealthy people and the right wing to get a do-over of a democratic election result they did not like. And that's what this recall campaign is all about. Wealthy people and a political establishment who were not able to defeat our re-election in 2019, and they want to do over. I mean, Matt mentioned some of the billionaires behind this campaign. There are so many others that we would not have time to name, but there are billionaires also who are in real estate who hate the fact that we have fought and won for renters. In fact, right now we are fighting to expand renters' rights. And we also have billionaires who have unfortunately donated to both Trump and Biden, which shows you the fact that ultimately the establishments agree on their loyalty to Wall Street. And this recall is the latest and the most egregious attack on our Socialist Council office, but it's hardly the first one. Ever since we took office in 2014, big business, the city's democratic establishment, they figured out that they can neither bully us, nor can they marginalize us, or nor can they get us to be loyal to the establishment discipline. And so, they've tried everything. They've filed lawsuit after lawsuit. I mean, I have lost count, and numerous ethics complaints, including some ethics complaints for using the City Hall printer and copier for making leaflets and posters to build our movements, which we do proudly. But none of these attacks have deterred us any way. So then in 2019, they went all out. Some of you know about how they tried to do a corporate takeover of City Hall. They spent unprecedented amounts of money. They sent any number of mailers with sexist, racist, and xenophobic attacks. Amazon alone threw down $1 million money bomb. But it wasn't just big business. 2 of the Latina Progressive Democratic Council members themselves, in coordination with unfortunately, some labor leaders, ran their own candidate against us in the primary election in 2019. They told stories to the media about how they supposedly agreed with the policies my office stood for, but that I did not know how to work with others. Now, the fact is, we do, of course, work with Democratic politicians where we agree on a common goal on an issue in the interest of the working class and marginalized communities. But what we will never do is adopt the mutual, career climbing backdoor negotiation approach that they base themselves on. So it doesn't matter what nice things they say for workers in public. If they're not willing to fight for workers honestly, then they are to some degree or another selling workers out. And so, this also goes back to Matt's original question about what is it that we should demand elected representatives should be doing to stand with union workers. It's not enough to just say some things in support of the Bessemer Union. You have to stand with workers in your own city if you're an elected representative, if you're truly loyal to the working class. But anyway, despite all this, Seattle's working class was still able to win our re-election. And then because they couldn't win that, now there's this recall. And we have to be very clear, the recall is not against me as an individual, or because they don't like my personality. It is an attack on left movements. It's an attack on working people. They want to send a message. If you ordinary people, if you workers, you dare to fight, let alone win, if you dare to use your elected office to do this, then we will come after you. Now, the thing is, we cannot let them win. And obviously, we cannot let them win the recall, but look at how the recall is, fighting the recall is connected to the larger struggle. We saw Jeff Bezos try to steal our election in 2019. We cannot let him steal the Bessemer vote. Those are the connections. Fighting for this solidarity campaign and standing with Bessemer workers, that goes hand in hand, because all of this, the anti-union attacks there and the recall attack here, they are all attacks from the ruling class against workers who dare to fight back. And I'll just say, because we will be attacked by the ruling class, by billionaires when we fight, the alternative is not to not fight. The alternative, we have to fight, but we have to understand that when we fight, those attacks will come. And we have to understand that that is a confirmation that we are actually doing the right thing, that we are a threat to the ruling class. That is why this recall is happening. And I'll just say this, if for any elected representative, it's positive that many socialists and left leaders are getting elected, but those elections in themselves are not enough. They are very positive, and it shows what's changing in America, but we need to go farther. And I'll just say this, if as an elected representative, your re-election is a cakewalk, then you're failing the working class, because the ruling class does not perceive you as a threat. If they perceive you as a threat, then you're doing the right thing. Then you're actually fighting for workers.
Thank you, Kshama. Excellent points. Keeping on this theme of the recall, we have a question for Keon. Do we have Logan?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah. My name's Logan. I'm a rank and file union iron worker out of Local 86 in Seattle. So yeah, I was just as a DSA member and labor leader. How do you think that the socialist left can work together to fight the recall against Kshama and to build the labor movement?
Yeah, I think I feel like Cora actually touched on this a bit too. I think organizations like DSA need to build campaigns that are sort of like containers, right? That allow us to pull together working class community groups, as well as trade unions, especially rank and file trade unionists, to struggle around big, broader, I guess, common good or social good demands. And doing so will actually create a context in which workers can start to question sort of the way society actually works, right? I mean, we feel the problems on a day-to-day basis, but when you start to put people in motion to actually try to solve those problems or to think through those problems, it starts to open up the eyes a little bit more, and we start to become clear as to just what it is that we need to do and what we're up against, right? So I think that building those kinds of campaigns and putting resources towards that, towards those campaigns is extremely important. And I mean like not just social media campaigns, right? Like I mean like really on the ground, having the conversations with working people, doing what you have to do to educate working people around these different issues so that they understand, and then like taking collective action, right? So those are the things I think that an organization like DSA can do, especially, the organization is growing in terms of numbers tremendously, right? But what we need to do is be able to put those numbers, concentrate those numbers towards that kind of work if we're going to be able to help advance the movement, right? I think that's important. If we run those kinds of campaigns, what it does is it allows rank and file trade unionists to also start to raise those questions, and especially think about the relationship of their unions to these struggles. For example, a trade union, regular rank and file member might say, well, why isn't my union supporting this particular issue? Why isn't my union involved in what's going on in Bessemer? If they have the similar conditions that we have, even though we're in a union, right? Excuse me. Why wouldn't our union and other progressive elected leaders and all that stuff, why wouldn't they be supporting a working class political leader who is actually fighting for all the things that we actually believe in and need in our own city? So it starts to raise those questions, and then we've got to be there to basically say, well, let me help you think through that, and here's why, right? I hope that kind of gets at like the question, but I guess the punchline is we need to build some really solid class struggle campaigns that are deeply grassroots, and that do that work.
Great, thank you, Keon. I want to dive back into some more specific struggles, particularly around education, which has been a flashpoint, currently and for a long time. We have a question from Matt M. Do we have Matt?
Yes, hello.
Matt, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So my question is for Cora. My name is Matthew Maley. I am a special education teacher here in Seattle, and I am a member of the Seattle Education Association, as well as a member in both Socialist Alternative and the Democratic Socialists of America. So Cora, as an education worker and a union leader, what roles do you think education struggles can play in rebuilding the labor movement and addressing the pandemic? Also, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's going on with the strike at Columbia University, and I'm sure everybody else would too. So thank you all for being here, and solidarity from Seattle.
Yeah, so thanks so much. Yeah, like I'm more than happy to talk about the grad workers strike. So yeah, I think like it's very, very clear that the pandemic has brought to light like tremendous inequalities and deficiencies of the whole education system. Like in higher ed, obviously like the humongous amount of student debt, it's creating really impossible situation for working class students. And now we hear from Biden like putting this moratorium and some relief for some people, but I think that we have to be very clear that the problem is not going to solve if we don't fight. One of the things before I go to the grad workers strike, in Columbia University, the undergrad students also start a tuition strike with 1,000 undergrads engaging in a strike of their tuition since January. And in I think like it's very clear that especially in these Ivy League institutions like Columbia University, it's not that much about the money, but it's more than anything else about their power and their ability to keep their for-profit education business model. And that's very clear also with the grad workers strike at Columbia University right now. Like one of the things that they are really being resistant, the university is being very resistant in giving to the grad workers union, it's giving them protections against sexual harassment and discrimination, access to a neutral third party, right? And that clearly shows that it's not that much about the money or the salaries, but it's basically about power and control of workers and students. And I think that that's very true for all employers. What it's more important for them is to be able to keep us under the boot in order to decide. And I think, as Jennifer was saying earlier, like they can treat you very well when you are organized and then keep their ability to remove it very quickly. And I think like that's, you know, something that I think we need to really keep in mind. On the K through 12 education system, I think like we've seen what decades of underfunding and attacks on teachers unions, on all these legislations that aim to charterize a school, like the No Child Left Behind, etc., has really done to the system. And through the pandemic, people have been forced to really choose between keeping educators and students safe, or actually being able to, you know, like send students to work, keep their mental health and their education going. And I see it with parents in my unit. I'm not a mother myself, but many of our members are really struggling. Like people that are working remotely, they have to do childcare and education in the morning and then work at night and sleep the couple of hours they have on the day. And the people that are going to work on site, it's even more difficult with, you know, childcare being extremely expensive in the city. And I think like we are seeing now how the Biden administration is sending billions of dollars to invest in education, also in higher ed and in K through 12 system. And, you know, this is really good, but I think like we cannot be naive and thinking that this is just gonna be used as in the benefit of working people. You know, like it's necessary that we really organize to really demand the kind of things that we need and really build a program and a platform that can unite us, people in both sides of the education system, like as, you know, teachers and as parents, as students, all together really fighting for the kind of things we need, investment on our schools, updating the infrastructure for having proper ventilation, of course, vaccination and all these different things, but then also more teachers to be able to cap class sizes, all the different, you know, like investment in technology. Like in New York City, it was clear that many neighborhoods don't even have like basic infrastructure like Wi-Fi, etc., to really attend remote schooling. And, you know, even in higher ed, the same thing. Like, you know, like students at Columbia are paying $40,000 per year, you know, and you know, the university is not even using that to pay their workers a decent wage. So clearly we can, I think that there is a very clear platform for, you know, as unionized workers, but also, you know, like parents, students to really get together and fight for the kind of education that we deserve.
So thank you, Cora. We have, I think, time for one more question. I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions for the panel. This has been a really fantastic event. But I want to go over to Alicia for, I think, something that's a really important issue.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And thanks so much, everyone, for this discussion. It's been really inspiring. My name's Alicia. I am a high school teacher in Pittsburgh. I even have a few students who have been following the Bessemer Union Drive and see this as part of the Black Lives Matter movement and are really actually very excited about it. I also organize with a grassroots coalition called Stop the Station, which is fighting against a police station's relocation to a gentrifying, historically Black working class neighborhood. And we're also fighting for democratic community control over the police. But we're also committed to fighting racism and exploitation of working class communities more broadly, which manifests in an oppressively low wage of $7.25 in Pennsylvania. So not even remotely close to 15. So with 15 being discussed nationally, what are the lessons from the victory in Seattle, and how could these lessons help us build the labor movement?
Kshama, can you take that?
Yes, I think, as Alicia said, the lessons from Seattle's $15 struggle are crucial. Obviously, working people right now are thinking about how can we win a federal $15 minimum wage, what will be needed to win the PRO Act. but it's not just about those things. It's also about a worker fight back overall. And the question is, can we have any confidence in any of the corporate Democratic politicians to follow through on their promises? And if the experience of Seattle is any guide, the answer is a resounding no. I mean, Seattle's historic $15 victory was won as a result of a socialist strategy, basing ourselves on independently and democratically organized mass movements. It was also not won through a strategy of most of the labor leaders who had been organizing Fight for 15 protests, but who relied on negotiations with Democratic politicians or big business. And remember, this was in 2014, when $15 was considered utopian and unwinnable, and that's the year that we won it. It all started with 2013, our city council campaign. From the beginning, we called for a $15 minimum wage. And also from the beginning, we received a great deal of pushback from the Democratic Party operatives. Also, a few prominent labor leaders who were organizing fast food worker protests were unhappy with our campaign for 15 because they didn't think it was winnable. They refused to endorse our campaign. And in fact, instead, they supported our corporate Democratic opponent who opposed $15 an hour. Despite all of this, we succeeded in putting 15 at the center of Seattle politics, and we won the election. And after we won, the union leaders who had not endorsed our election campaign actually said they wanted to work with us to win 15. We got to work on that. They noted that despite their endorsement of our opponent, most of their members were inspired by our campaign and had voted for us. But we made it clear that we want to work together, but our strategy was going to be based on mass movements, not negotiations with Democrats or big business. And then in January, we launched the 15 Now grassroots campaign, that is Socialist Alternative and my council office. We launched this together with progressive labor unions. 15 Now organized mass conferences, neighborhood action groups. We held a series of marches. And most importantly, 15 Now decided to file a grassroots ballot initiative so that we could take the issue to voters if Democratic City Council members failed to act. All of this was crucial because neither the Democrats nor the big business bosses had any intention of allowing 15 if they could help it. The 15 Now ballot initiative particularly was a vital tactic to winning. And this is important because that tactic was opposed by many of the labor leaders also. And then later it was publicly acknowledged by big business leaders that this was the only reason that they were forced to concede. The immediate step in January 2014 by the establishment was not to say no 15 because they weren't in a position to say that, but instead they tried to co-opt the struggle. And this will happen again and again in movement rebuild. So we have to be very careful to understand this. They had the newly elected Democratic Mayor Ed Murray launch what came to be known as the Income Inequality Advisory Committee. This was going to include prominent labor leaders, NGO leaders, but also many of the local corporate barons who are fiercely opposed to 15 and who did not bother to conceal their disdain towards workers and me. In fact, there's lots of things I could tell you, quotes from them, the things that they said at these meetings that were so insulting of workers. So on this committee were Chamber of Commerce, leaders of the restaurant industry, the hotel industry, Nucor Steel, Howard Wright, who owns the Space Needle and is anti-union himself. Then we had David Rolfe, the then president of SEIU 775. These two were appointed co-chairs. And it really shows this committee was composed of half business, half labor. I was also on the committee, but it sort of shows this idea that Democrats have that, oh, let's all meet in the middle. That doesn't work because big business is not on your side. But we discussed and we decided that I should accept being in the committee. But what I did was at the launch of the committee, at the press conference, I said that I will serve on this committee as a shop steward of Seattle's working people, not at the behest of the mayor. The labor members of this committee and I had separate meetings as the labor caucus. And at one of these labor caucus meetings, during a pivotal moment when our movement was gaining ground on the streets, one of the influential labor leaders in the movement said they had talked to business leaders on the committee and that things were at an impasse. They were convinced we were not going to get 15 and that maybe we should lower it to 12. That was the only thing we can win. We should back down now. This was absolutely stunning to me because it was not at a moment when the movement had declined or thrown back. Support for 15 was stronger than ever. Some of the other labor leaders agreed with me, but they were not going to say anything. So I had to push back and say, I prefer that we all strongly united go together. But if you don't agree, then I will have to break with them. And finally, they agreed with us. But the reason I'm sharing all of this is because it's an example of how, as socialist elected representatives, whether you're in legislatures or city councils or in the union movement, our unity as leaders has to be with working people and with who are willing to fight, like Sister Sara and Jennifer, Brother Keon, as Brother Keon said, this is about class struggle. Our unity cannot be with other leaders who are reluctant to take on a fighting strategy, even if they're well-meaning. That's not the point. The point is we have to fight for workers and we have to be loyal to workers. And so even though they had no intention of allowing this, we were able to win. And this strategy shows that a strategy by movement leaders and working class representatives of prioritizing peace with big business and the establishment, that not only shackles the movement, but it can potentially be fatal. Imagine if at that time in the Labor Caucus meeting, we had all agreed and I had capitulated and said, okay, yeah, we can't win. The big business leaders are playing hardball. Let's just settle for 11 or 12. You know what? If we had settled for 11 or 12, we probably not even have won that. Because big business would have smelled blood in the water and they would have gone for even more. So we have no choice, and we should be proud to be fighting tooth and nail for the interests of the working class and not have the illusion that somehow there can be common ground, that somehow there can be peace between the interests of big business and the billionaires and the interests of workers, because that's not how it's posed. They're diametrically opposed. And I think this will be, we will need to highlight this even in the question of federal $15 an hour. That will not be won by the squad making reasonable arguments to Nancy Pelosi and others. That's not going to happen. Instead, the squad should have, at that moment when the stimulus bill was being argued, they should have fought to, they should have withheld their vote for the bill unless $15 is included back on it. And they should have mobilized hundreds of thousands of workers, if not millions, across the country. But even now, they should use their elected positions alongside the labor movement to rally millions of people into mass action. They should call mass conferences on $15, as we did in Seattle, but on a national scale. They should build the momentum of millions to put big business and the establishment on notice. They need to go to the mat for the working class and fight every bit as hard for us as Joe Manchin does for big business. And I know many people will say, well, that's just Seattle. You don't know how it works in Congress. No, we know exactly how it works. It's only worse in Congress, the domination of big business. The only thing that will work for us, whether it is local or state or federal, is an all-out fight back for workers by uniting the working class around commonly shared goals, commonly shared demands, and making that into a force against the ruling class. And we should not buy into this false dichotomy between, oh, this worked in Seattle, but it can't work in Congress. And ultimately, all of this has to lead us to a logical conclusion about the need to build a new working class political party independent of the Democrats, because fighting for fundamental change for workers is going to require an immediate break from a Democratic Party, which is not on our side, and the building of truly mass movements for the working class. But all of this will require courage. It will require patience to win over workers, a willingness to be in a minority at some points. If you are an elected representative, as Keon said, we need our elected representatives to be accountable to our people. It will require fighting alongside working people and marginalized communities if we are to raise the working class's sights to what is possible and what is necessary, and if we are to take on the urgent tasks that face us in this historic period.
Thank you so much, Kshama. And thank you to everyone, Keon and Cora and Jennifer, for starting us off with that update from Bessemer. I think this has been a really incredible event. I wish that we could get to all the questions. Really happy that the Kshama Solidarity Campaign was able to organize this. I think we've addressed some of the really pressing issues for the labor movement and talking about how to build up a fighting labor movement that can take on big business in Seattle, nationally, worldwide. I know we have people who are joining from all over the place. So thank you everyone for coming on. Also, just a quick update. We have raised in hand over $12,000 from this call for the Kshama Solidarity Campaign. I know there's still pledges that are waiting to come in, so please get those in now so that we can announce as big of a number as possible and announce the huge solidarity from this group of people today on the Zoom call, watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, watching on all these platforms, and joining together for this really important discussion. Just another plug for all the things that have been put in the chat. be sure to sign that union members petition in solidarity with Kshama, what's going on in Seattle. Check out that article from Socialist Labor Leaders about the need to unite the labor movement around this fight in Bessemer, Alabama, in solidarity with the workers, Jennifer and everyone else down there. Very, very important to read that and sign that petition as well. Do whatever you can to help build that. And also, if you want to get involved with Socialist Alternative and the things that we're doing in the Solidarity campaign out in Seattle, there's a link in the chat to get more involved with Socialist Alternative as well. And again, donate to the Solidarity campaign. Talk to this about friends. Send coworkers. I saw in the chat, Leah was sending that link out to UAW members to give support. So thank you to everyone who's doing that. Thank you, Leah. Thank you to everyone who's spreading the word and helping to build this movement. This has been an incredible event, incredible show of solidarity. And I hope everyone has a great night, and looking forward to seeing everyone in the struggle. Thank you.